Picture this scene with me. 200-300 people gathered in a magnificent church, bathed in the colored light streaming through stained glass windows. The gentle melody begins to echo, and everyone turns to her. The most stunning bride I've ever seen in my life. Flawless dress, calculated smile. Each step toward the altar seemed straight out of a fairy tale. And there I was, standing before the priest, playing the part of the love-struck groom, ready to say, "I do," to the great love of my life. Beautiful, right? Except none of it was true. Behind that white veil, there hid a secret, capable of ruining any marriage before it even began. Madison was pregnant, but not with my child. And the cruelest part, I'd known this for weeks. Even so, I chose to let the show go on in front of everyone, because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't served in silence, but in front of an entire audience. And what happened in that church, I guarantee you'll never forget. If you've ever lived through a moment when everything seemed perfect, but hid a devastating truth, this story will grip you until the very last second. So buckle up, because what I lived through that Saturday changed forever the way I see trust, love, and betrayal. I woke up at 6 in the morning with a strange weight in my chest. It wasn't just anxiety. It was like the entire universe had decided to conspire, announcing that something momentous was about to happen. And I knew I was at the center of it all. Today was the day I'd been waiting for since I met Madison 4 years ago. The wedding. Have you ever had that feeling that your life was about to change forever? That butterfly feeling in your stomach that mixes fear and anticipation? If you felt that, drop anticipation in the comments below. I want to see how many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Except in my case, the transformation would be far more radical than I ever imagined. The silence in my Manhattan apartment felt too heavy. I got up from the king-size bed, the one that in just a few hours I'd officially share with Madison as husband and wife, and walked to the window. From there, I watched New York slowly wake up. The clear sky, without a single cloud, seemed like a sign that even God was smiling down on my day. I was 32 years old, owner of a tech company that made millions with successful apps, but none of that mattered as much as she did. Madison wasn't just beautiful. She was intelligent, refined, daughter of one of the most respected cardiologists in the country, a woman who, when she walked by, made heads turn. To me, she was the definition of everything I'd always been looking for. My thoughts were interrupted by my phone ringing. It was Andrew, my best friend since college, and best man at the wedding. "Hey there, Groom. Did you sleep well on your last night as a bachelor?" His excited voice echoed through the room, carrying an energy that contrasted with the turmoil I felt inside. Ryan took a deep breath and smiled. "Slept like a baby. I can't wait to see Madison walking down the aisle." Andrew responded enthusiastically. "You're one lucky guy, Ryan. Madison is one of a kind, loyal, gorgeous, and with a heart of gold. Hard to find someone like that these days." Ryan's heart beat faster. Madison had been perfect in every detail of their 4 years together, always loving, punctual, patient, and supporting every difficult business decision. When he thought about expanding overseas, she was the first to encourage him. When he had to travel for months, she sent daily messages, full of encouragement. "Andrew, I've never felt so sure about anything in my life," Ryan said, opening his closet and looking at the carefully chosen outfit. "Madison is the woman of my life, no doubt about it. That's right. At 2 p.m. you'll be married to the woman of your dreams. I'm already at the venue. The flowers look stunning, the catering is flawless, and the church is perfect." Ryan hung up the phone and got in the shower. The hot water cascading over him brought vivid memories. Their first date in Soho, with a cappuccino spilled from Madison's laughter, asking her to be his girlfriend on the beach in the Hamptons, marked by tears of joy, sleepless nights taking care of her when she got sick, and above all, That December afternoon, 6 months ago, in her parents' garden, when he got down on one knee and proposed. Madison said yes before he even finished the sentence, whispering, "I've been waiting for this moment since our first kiss." After his shower, Ryan dressed carefully. Black dress pants, impeccable white shirt, Italian shoes chosen for the big day. He looked in the mirror, adjusted his tie, and smiled. He was ready to experience the greatest happiness of his life. The drive to St. Benedict's Church was peaceful. Ryan drove his BMW through the city streets he loved, listening to the playlist Madison had specially curated for the ceremony. Each song evoked memories of them. When All of Me started playing, a shiver ran down his spine. That would be the soundtrack to their first dance as husband and wife. He arrived at the church at 11:30 a.m., 2 hours before the ceremony. Every detail needed to be perfect to welcome Madison and the 300 guests who were eagerly waiting. The church breathed magic. White and pale pink flowers filled the space, and the red carpet seemed to guide each step toward the grand moment. The air was charged with expectation, as if every detail conspired to make that day eternal. Andrew greeted Ryan with a firm hug. "You look radiant, man. I've never seen you like this." Ryan surveyed the hall with his gaze, absorbing every flower, every arrangement, every soft light. In just a few hours, Madison would walk down that aisle, and they would officially become family. Finally. "You know what makes me feel most secure, Andrew? It's having found someone I can trust completely. Madison truly loves me. No masks, no ulterior motives. If only he knew what he was about to discover, maybe he wouldn't feel so certain." It was 12:15 when he decided to confront his suspicions. A private detective had brought him devastating evidence about Madison, but Ryan wanted to hear it from her before taking action. Tradition forbade seeing the bride before the ceremony, but he needed absolute certainty. "Andrew, I'm going to the bridal suite real quick. I need to confirm something." His friend frowned. "Ryan, you know that's bad luck. You can't. Some traditions need to be broken," Ryan said firmly, but with a tone that Andrew didn't understand. He walked through the corridors with his heart racing, not from romance, but from fear of what he might find. The bridal suite was in the annex, elegant and private, where Madison was getting ready with Lily, Anna, and 2 other bridesmaids. Ryan knew them well, but now he suspected complicity. As he approached the door, he heard female voices, and there was Madison's laughter, once sweet and familiar, now strangely distant, as if hiding something. Ryan discreetly turned on his phone's voice recorder, leaning against the wall next to the door. The air seemed heavy, charged with expectation. If the detective's findings were correct, he was about to hear the final proof. The female voices inside the bridal suite came muffled, but clear enough to make him tremble. "Girls, I can't keep this secret anymore." It was Madison, but no, it wasn't her. Was Madison just confirming the tension in Madison's voice? No. Was it Madison? Ryan blinked, his mind trying to process. But then he recognized the tone. Was it Madison? "I need to tell you all. Spill it, Isabella, you've been acting weird for weeks," Madison said. Ryan pressed the recorder, his heart hammering against his chest. What secret was this that would change everything? "I'm pregnant." Madison's voice cut like a punch. A moment of hope emerged, but disappeared immediately. But it's not Ryan's. The world seemed to collapse. Every suspicion, every alert from the detective, everything was confirmed in one hard blow to the stomach. "What?" her friends exclaimed in unison. "Girls, I got involved with Robert Carter 2 months ago. You know, Ryan's business partner. That gorgeous guy we met at the company party." Ryan closed his eyes, feeling the confirmation weigh down on him. Robert Carter, business partner for 3 years, someone he trusted like a brother, now part of an irreversible betrayal. Madison, have you lost your mind? What about the wedding? Anna asked, incredulous. I love Ryan. I swear I love him. But in a different way. With him I have security, stability. Her voice sounded cold, calculating. And Robert? Do you love him? Lily insisted. Robert is fire, desire, everything I'm missing. But he's unstable. He wouldn't give me what Ryan gives me. Ryan's stomach twisted. The woman he loved was talking about him like an investment. So you're going to marry while pregnant with Robert's baby? Madison asked, shocked. Exactly. The baby will be born in November. Ryan would never get a DNA test. He loves me too much for that. Silence. Her plan was detailed, cruel, meticulous. But now Ryan had every word recorded, every detail confirmed. He turned off the recorder. He had everything he needed. Each step of his revenge could now be executed with precision. Returning to the main hall, his heart cold, Ryan was no longer the betrayed groom, but the strategist ready to act. Madison thought she was being clever. She was about to discover that she had underestimated the man before her. Ryan smiled, silent and cutting. In 75 minutes, she would learn the true weight of the word consequences. Andrew immediately noticed something about Ryan was different, relentless. Ryan, you have a strange expression. Did you manage to see Madison? I heard exactly what I needed to hear, Ryan replied, with an icy smile that didn't reach his eyes. Andrew didn't seem convinced, but didn't press. An hour and a half to go. Guests have already started arriving. Your dad just called. He's coming with your mom, and Madison's family is almost all here. Ryan nodded mechanically. 90 minutes. 90 minutes to execute the plan he'd been architecting with surgical precision for the past 2 weeks. He sat on a church pew, pretending to review final details, while his mind went over each step of the strategy. Madison was just a few feet away, just feet from walking to the altar and deceiving everyone, not imagining that her secret was about to explode in public. Are you sure you're okay? Andrew approached, sitting beside him. I've never seen you like this. I look like I've seen a ghost, Ryan thought, bitterly. Can I ask you something? Sure. Have you ever had that feeling that something was wrong, but you couldn't prove it? Andrew frowned. Ryan, what kind of question is that? On your wedding day? Ryan looked away, measuring each word. What if you discovered that the person you trust most in life is lying about something very important? Andrew swallowed hard. Man, you're scaring me. Did something happen with Madison? Almost for an instant, Ryan revealed everything. The secret investigation, the evidence, the revenge plan about to be executed. But he restrained himself. Andrew would know everything soon, along with each of the guests, at the right moment. Forget it, Andrew. I think I'm too nervous. But Ryan wasn't nervous. Every detail had been planned over the past 2 weeks, since the detective had delivered the first evidence. Today would be execution day. Time seemed to trickle slowly through the church corridors. Each of Ryan's steps among the guests was mechanical. Greetings, smiles, thank you. But his mind was fixed on the plan, on the precise movements he would make in the following minutes. He wouldn't cancel the wedding, wouldn't confront Madison in private, wouldn't run away like a coward. She had chosen to lie publicly, deceiving him before God and everyone. The truth, now, needed to emerge the same way, in public, for all to see. Ryan mentally reviewed every detail of the revenge, imagining the revelation of each lie, each gesture of falseness exposed. He picked up his phone and checked the confirmations again. Everything was in place. His special guests already occupied strategic points. Each piece on the board awaited the final move. Checkmate was near. The clock showed 50 minutes until the ceremony. 50 minutes for Madison to discover she had chosen the wrong man to deceive. Ryan's smile grew wider. Madison wanted an unforgettable wedding. He would give her exactly that. Unforgettable for the right reasons, but wrong for her. This time, the surprise would be all hers. Ryan Almeida wasn't just a successful businessman. He was a born strategist, used to thinking 10 steps ahead. All that skill now had a single objective: make Madison pay for every lie told. At 2 p.m. sharp, St. Benedict's Church was packed. 300 guests settled into the pews, whispering with anticipation. The organ began playing the wedding march. All eyes turned toward the entrance, eager for the moment when Madison would appear. Ryan stood at the altar, impeccable in his black tuxedo, beside the priest and Andrew. On the outside, he radiated calm and elegance, with the perfect groom's smile. Inside, every fiber of his being was alert, every thought calculating what was about to happen. The pieces were already on the board. Dr. Samuel Richards, his lawyer, remained discreet in the last pew, a folder of documents open before him. Charles, the journalist, mingled among the guests with his photographer, and Sophie occupied the middle of the church, serene and stunning in a navy blue dress that enhanced her green eyes. The church doors opened. The bridesmaids began walking down the aisle, one by one. Madison, Lily, Anna. Ryan observed each smile, each greeting to the guests, remembering they were accomplices in the lie about to be revealed. They were completely unaware of the storm approaching. Finally, Madison appeared in the entrance, stunning, elegantly dressed, the delicate veil over her shoulders, holding a bouquet of white roses that trembled slightly in her hand. Her eyes sparkled, and her radiant smile seemed to illuminate the entire church. For an instant, Ryan almost forgot everything: the betrayal, the lie, the baby that wasn't his. Madison looked so perfect that he almost convinced himself that it was all just a nightmare, a terrible misunderstanding. Then she advanced down the aisle. Each step awakened in his mind the words he'd heard hours before. He loves me too much for that. He's secure, successful, gives me a good life. I'm doing what's best for me. Ryan's smile hardened, cold as ice. She reached the altar, side by side with him. She whispered, sweet and apparently sincere, "You look handsome. I love you so much." Ryan dove into those eyes that had been lying for months and responded at the same tone, loaded with irony. "I love you too, darling, more than you can imagine." The priest began the ceremony, speaking about love, commitment, and fidelity. Ryan listened to each word as if they were silent stabs. Fidelity. What a joke. Marriage is a sacred union. The priest continued, his deep voice echoing through the hall, founded on true love, trust, and honesty between two people who choose to build a life together. Ryan held back a dry laugh. The ceremony proceeded with perfection. Readings, prayers, speeches about eternal love. Madison glowed with emotion, discreetly wiping away some tears, while guests were also moved. Everything seemed beautiful, touching, flawless, until the moment Ryan was waiting for. If anyone knows of any impediment why these two should not be wed, the priest said solemnly, "Speak now or forever. Hold your peace." Silence took over the church. Ryan stepped forward. "Father, I'd like to say a few words before we continue." A surprised murmur ran through the guests. Madison looked at Ryan, confused, perhaps expecting an unexpected romantic declaration. "Of course, go ahead," the priest replied, surprised. Ryan turned to those present. 300 people watched him, curious. He took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice clear, filling every corner of the church. "Dear friends and family, thank you for being here today. This should be a day of celebration, but I want to tell a story about trust, love, and how sometimes those we love can surprise us." Madison maintained her smile, but Ryan noticed a subtle tension in her eyes. "Once upon a time there was a man," he continued, "who loved a woman more than anything. He trusted her without reservation, thinking her honest, loyal, perfect. He was ready to give his heart, his home, his future, everything for her. The silence was absolute, all eyes fixed on Ryan. But this woman kept secrets, very well hidden secrets. Secrets about another man, about lies, about— Ryan made a dramatic pause. About a baby. Madison paled. Her hands began to tremble. "Ryan," she whispered, "what are you talking about?" But Ryan kept his voice firm, clear, commanding each word, each silence, each gaze. This woman thought she had everything under control. She believed she could manipulate his love, use him as a ladder to reach the life she wanted. To her, he wasn't a partner, but just an instrument, security, status, a father for a child that wasn't his. A surprised murmur began to run through the church. Madison was pale, almost blending in with the white of her wedding dress. "Ryan, stop this," she tried to whisper, but the tension in her voice betrayed her desperation. She thought he would never find out. I continued, ignoring her plea. She underestimated my love. That's true, but she also underestimated my intelligence. The priest approached, concerned. "My son, perhaps it would be better if we talked in private." "No, Father. Everyone here needs to hear the truth." I turned to Madison. "Isn't that right, darling? Everyone deserves to know about you and Robert, about the baby you're carrying, about how you tried to use me like a lovesick fool." The silence broke, with muffled cries of shock. Madison began to tremble, unable to control herself. "That's not true." Her voice was lost in sobs. "Ryan, you've lost your mind. What kind of story is this?" I smiled coldly and took my phone from my pocket. "I'm glad you asked." I pressed play. Madison's voice exploded through the speakers, reverberating in every corner of the church. "I'm pregnant, but it's not Ryan." Chaos took over St. Benedict's. 300 guests heard her own confession, word by word, every detail of the betrayal I had recorded hours before. "Girls, I got involved with Robert 2 months ago. You know, Ryan's business partner." She tried to run to me to turn off the phone, but I stopped her with a firm gesture. The words came out of the speakers, destroying her image in front of everyone. "I love Ryan. I swear I love him, but in a different way. He's secure, successful, gives me comfort, stability. With him, my life seems planned." Dr. Sergio Rodriguez, my father-in-law, abruptly stood up from the front row, his face red with rage and embarrassment. "Turn that off," he shouted, almost breathless. "Turn it off now." But I didn't turn it off. The audio continued, each word from Madison stabbed like a dagger in silence, condemning her by her own account. "The baby will be born in November. I'll tell Ryan it was premature, like 7 months. Men don't understand these things. Even if he suspects, he would never get a DNA test. He loves me too much for that." "No, Madison," she screamed, trying to grab my phone. "This is a lie, a fake. Ryan is trying to destroy me." But the audio didn't bow to scream. It continued, sealing destinies, relentless. Life isn't fair, Anna. It's about making the best choices, and I'm making mine." When the last word echoed, silence took over the church like a heavy wave. Then suddenly, everything broke into chaos. Madison, Lily, and Anna, the accomplice bridesmaids, panicked, aware that they too would be judged. Madison's mother cried uncontrollably. Guests whispered among themselves, some standing to flee, others frozen, hypnotized by the drama unfolding. "Lies!" Madison screamed, face wet with tears, desperation in her voice. "Ryan, why are you doing this to me? I love you. That audio is fake." I stared at her, my icy calm sharper than any explosion of rage. "Madison, do you really think anyone will believe that I faked an audio with your voice and your friends' voices on our wedding day? That I'm crazy? You have to be insane." She cried, incredulous. "How could I do this if I loved her?" "Because I loved you, Madison." I emphasized. I loved a woman who doesn't exist. I loved the honest, loyal, truthful Madison. But the woman in front of me is a liar, manipulator, traitor. The altar was plunged in heavy silence. Father Anthony raised his voice, trying to impose order. Please, let's calm down. We can still resolve this civilly. There's nothing left to resolve, Father. I spoke slowly, each word cutting the air like a blade. The ceremony was over, but the tension remained, electric, almost palpable. Dr. Sergio Rodriguez advanced, firm steps that made the floor tremble under his feet. His face was a mask of fury and humiliation. You're going to pay for this, Ryan. Humiliating my daughter won't go unpunished. I turned slowly, the icy smile sliding across my lips. Dr. Sergio, the truth is simple. She humiliated herself. I just made sure everyone saw before they made the mistake of celebrating a lie. The recording could be fake, he shouted, thought eyes wide, each word loaded with desperation. I discreetly nodded to Dr. Leonard Campbell, who approached with silent, confident steps. Please explain about the recording analysis conducted today. Dr. Leonard opened the folder, sliding the documents carefully. 2 experts confirmed. Authentic, without manipulation. Metadata indicates recording from today, 12:20. Madison Rodriguez fell to her knees, sobs tearing through the silence. Ryan, please, can we talk? I can explain. Explain what? My voice cut like glass. How you used me as a substitute father. How you laughed at me behind my back. How you coldly calculated that I would be the best investment for your life. That's not it. I love you, she screamed, desperate. You love my bank account, Madison. You love the security I offer, the status of my name. But you don't love me. You don't even respect me. Charles, the journalist, was there. Each click and cell phone recording calculated. The story of his life was being written before our eyes. And now, she sobbed, eyes full of fear and regret. I smiled coldly, letting the ice run down her spine. Now, darling, you're going to learn what happens when someone tries to play games with Ryan Almeida. I turned to the guests, and silence crushed them. Some could barely breathe. Others clung to their chairs as if they were salvation. Ladies and gentlemen, I said firmly, letting each word weigh in the air, there will be no wedding today. The reception? Cancelled. The honeymoon? Forget it. Anyone who wants to leave, feel free. But my voice didn't fall silent. Far from it. Madison, I murmured, and all eyes turned to her. There's something you still need to hear. Her eyes, enormous and terrified, fixed on mine. What? It wasn't today that I found out. I took a deep breath, feeling my heart race. I've known for 2 weeks. Her face lost all color, if that were possible. What do you mean? A cold smile curved my lips. I planned every moment of this humiliation, each gesture, each word, each detail meticulously calculated. You thought you were playing me, but actually you were the one dancing on my chessboard. 2 weeks, she whispered, trembling. 2 weeks, I confirmed. I hired a private detective, followed your every step, captured photos, videos, secret conversations. I saw everything. The affair with Robert, the pregnancy, every plan to deceive me, every lie, every deception. Nothing went unnoticed. She froze, breathing shallow, shoulders sagging. Then, why didn't you cancel before? Why let it get to this point? I approached, my voice low, firm, loaded with contained rage but audible to all. Because I wanted you to feel what I felt when I discovered the truth. To experience public humiliation in front of everyone you deceived, along with me. I paused for a moment, watching her tears flow, smudging her impeccable makeup. I wanted everyone to see who you really are, hidden behind the perfection you display. Dr. Sergio tried to intervene, distressed. Ryan, this is cruelty. This could have stayed between us. How could it stay between us? My firm voice cut through the air. Madison didn't just betray me. She planned to make me father a child that isn't mine, lied about everything, manipulated my love to achieve the life she wanted. This doesn't deserve silence. It deserves everyone to know. Madison finally calmed down, the sobs diminishing, but hatred still burning in her eyes. "You're a monster," she whispered, each word full of pain. "You destroyed my life." "Me?" I smiled, cold and calculated. "Madison, you destroyed your own life the moment you decided to betray me. I just made sure the consequences were proportional to the betrayal. And now? What do you want from me?" I nodded to Dr. Leonard Campbell. "Now you're going to realize that the consequences go far beyond this public humiliation." He approached, folder in hand, serious expression. "Madison, I need to inform you about some legal changes that Ryan implemented over the past 2 weeks." "What changes?" Her voice trembled, and her intertwined hands betrayed her desperation. "First," Dr. Leonard continued, "the house that Ryan bought for you two after the wedding. The contract was canceled. The house was sold yesterday, and the value donated to a charity that helps betrayed women." Madison opened her mouth in shock. "The house, but where am I going to live?" "Second," he continued, relentless, all the additional credit cards that Ryan had provided were canceled, joint accounts closed, and the investments made in your name liquidated. "You can't do this," she screamed, desperate. "Actually, I can," Ryan said, his voice calm and cutting. "Everything was in my name. You were never a co-owner of anything. You always said you trusted me to handle the finances, and I did." "Third," Dr. Leonard continued, firmly, "Ryan revoked the power of attorney he had given you to make decisions on his behalf in case of emergency. He also canceled the life insurance policy where you were the beneficiary." Madison stepped back, panic taking over. "Ryan, you can't leave me with nothing. I'm pregnant. You're pregnant with Luke's baby," I corrected coldly, observing each of her reactions. "By the way, he's already been informed of the entire situation. I received a message from him an hour ago. He seems shocked and needs time to process everything. Don't count too much on his support." The last spark of hope vanished from Madison's face, as if the light had been sucked into the church floor. My smile curved into something colder, more calculating. "And you know what's the best part?" I began, my voice echoing through the stunned silence. "Our company is thriving without Luke. And actually, I've already found someone who understands the value of loyalty." I looked toward the middle of the church and made a subtle gesture. "Sophie, come up here." All eyes turned to the woman in the navy blue dress. She rose with natural grace, each step measured and confident, walking down the aisle with the assurance of someone who belonged there. Sophie Mendez was everything Madison would never be. Genuine, loyal, in love with who I am, not what I own. "Madison," I said, my voice steady. "Remember her? My ex from 2 years ago. The woman I let slip away because I thought I'd found something better in you." Hatred flashed in Madison's eyes. She still didn't understand what was unfolding before her. "Sophie is my new business partner," I announced. "She bought Luke's share this morning, and more than that." I took Sophie's hand. "She's the woman I'm going to rebuild my life with, for real." Her smile was quiet but powerful, a stark contrast to the mask Madison had worn for so long. "You orchestrated all of this," Madison murmured, her voice heavy with shock and delayed understanding. "Every single detail," I confirmed firmly. "Ever since I discovered your betrayal, I planned not just to expose you, but to make sure you paid for the choices you made." "You're both monsters," she screamed, pointing at both of us. "No," Sophie spoke for the first time, calm and resolute. "We're people who believe in loyalty, true love, honesty, things you never understood." I turned to the guests one last time. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the spectacle. But sometimes the truth needs to be revealed with crystal clarity. Taking Sophie's hand, I began walking toward the exit. But first I looked at Madison again, kneeling at the altar, destroyed, defeated, alone with her own lies. "Oh, Madison, one more thing," I said, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "The premature baby? My private investigator found out it's 12 weeks along, not 8. Even that lie wouldn't have saved you." Ryan Almeida and Sophie Mendez walked out of St. Benedict's Church hand in hand, leaving behind a trail of shock. Madison Rodriguez, devastated, a humiliated family, and hundreds of guests who would never forget the wedding that turned into revenge. Madison remained alone at the altar. Her white dress, stained with tears, seemed to weigh a ton. Every detail of that day, which she had imagined would be perfect, now reflected the end of everything she believed she controlled. The church slowly emptied, footsteps and whispers echoing through the corridors, each glance of surprise or disapproval like invisible daggers. The accomplice bridesmaids approached hesitantly, but Madison pushed them away with a fierce gesture. "Get out of here. You betrayed me too. You should have stopped me." "Madison, you asked us to keep it a secret." One of them tried to argue. "Get out." Madison cut her off without hesitation. Alone, surrounded by the wreckage of her own life, Madison felt the absolute weight of her choices. 3 days later, reality hit her in even more painful waves. In her mother's small apartment, with nowhere else to go, Madison read headlines in newspapers and gossip websites that Charles, the journalist, had published. "Businessman exposes bride's affair at the altar in wedding-turned-nightmare. Audio proves bride planned to deceive husband with another man's child. The most calculated revenge of the year. How one man destroyed a liar in public." The images captured her crying at the altar. Ryan relentless, Sophie as the true heroine, and even the bridesmaids as accomplices in a historic betrayal. The nightmare wasn't over yet. The phone rang. Dr. Leonard Campbell, Ryan's attorney, spoke with a firm, professional voice. "Madison, I need to inform you about some additional developments." "What now?" she asked, her throat dry and voice trembling. "Ryan has decided to sue you for marital fraud and attempted fraudulent paternity. Despite not being officially married, the 4-year engagement and signed contracts constitute a common law marriage." Madison Rodriguez felt her world collapse. "Sue her? Why?" "You attempted to defraud Ryan regarding paternity and inheritance issues. That's a crime. He has all the evidence," said Dr. Leonard Campbell, his firm voice echoing through the phone. "But what does that mean?" she whispered, unable to digest the gravity of it all. "You could be looking at 2 to 6 years in prison, depending on how the judge interprets the evidence." Dr. Henry's words echoed through the phone like a hammer striking cold metal. The phone slipped from Madison's trembling hands, crashing onto the marble kitchen floor with a bang that seemed to shake the entire structure of her mother's small apartment where she now hid. Prison, the word, ricocheted in her mind like a stray bullet, heavy as molten lead, burning every fiber of her thoughts. She let herself slide down the wall, feeling the cold tile pierce through the thin fabric of her blouse. Her heart pounded so hard, it seemed like it wanted to escape from her chest. 6 years. 6 years away from the sun, away from freedom, away from everything she once called life. Her cold hands instinctively touched her still small belly, where a life was growing, a life that would be forever marked by its mother's dishonesty. "My God," she whispered to the emptiness of the silent apartment. "What have I done? What have I done to myself?" That same afternoon, while still trying to process the magnitude of the disaster her life had become, Madison discovered that Ryan had gone beyond any revenge she could have imagined. Through a desperate call from her former assistant, Marina, she learned about the existence of a website that made her blood run cold. The truth about Madison Rodriguez. With hands shaking from anxiety and horror, She accessed the web address. The page loaded slowly, as if the universe itself wanted to prolong her agony. And then there it all was. Every sordid detail of her betrayal exposed like pieces of a macabre puzzle. Photos of her entering the hotel with Luke. Audio recordings of intimate conversations she never imagined anyone could have recorded. WhatsApp conversations that showed with crystal clarity the coldness of her calculation. But what destroyed her the most was the timeline. A detailed and meticulously organized chronology of every step of the plan she had orchestrated. Dates, times, locations, everything documented with the precision of a forensic report. Ryan had turned her betrayal into a case study on manipulation and marital dishonesty. How did he get all this? She murmured, scrolling through infinite pages of evidence. The answer was there, at the bottom of the site. A special thanks to private investigator Marcus Santana and his team for their dedication and professionalism in collecting evidence that revealed the truth. Within hours, the site went viral. The visitor count increased exponentially. 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 unique visitors. Social media exploded with comments, memes, analyses. Suddenly, Madison Rodriguez was no longer a person. She had become a symbol. The symbol of the woman who tried to deceive her husband with a child that wasn't his. News outlets began republishing the story. The most elaborate revenge of the decade, how a businessman spectacularly exposed his bride's betrayal. The Madison Rodriguez case, when lies turn against the liar. Her name was everywhere, associated with betrayal, dishonesty, manipulation. During the night, she received hundreds of messages, some supportive, but most filled with hatred and contempt. "You're a disgrace to all women," said one. "I hope you rot in prison," declared another. "Your child will grow up knowing what kind of mother they had," wrote someone who didn't even know her, but now felt entitled to judge her entire life. Her professional reputation as an architect couldn't withstand the tsunami. The next morning, all her potential clients had canceled their contracts. Those already in progress demanded immediate termination, some threatening to sue her for emotional damages just by association. Within days, projects she had worked on for months simply evaporated. "Madison," said Lily, her business partner at the firm, during a tense call the following Wednesday, "we need to talk about the company's future. Lily, you've known me for 5 years. You know who I am beyond these mistakes." "I know who I thought you were," she replied coldly. "But now, Madison, I have a reputation to protect, a family to support. I can't go down with you." Within a week, the architecture firm they had built together simply went bankrupt. 17 employees lost their jobs. 5 years of hard work, award-winning projects, professional recognition, all crumbled like a sandcastle hit by a giant wave. But the consequences spread beyond her career. Dr. Sergio Rodriguez, her father, a respected and beloved cardiologist in the medical community, began to feel the weight of association with his daughter's scandal. Patients who had been with him for decades started canceling appointments, whispering in hospital corridors about lack of family character and how does a man raise a daughter like that? "Dad, forgive me," she cried over the phone on a gray Sunday afternoon. "I destroyed your reputation along with mine." "Madison," replied Dr. Sergio, with the tired voice of someone who had aged years in just a few weeks. "I love you unconditionally. You're my daughter. But I can't deny that I'm disappointed. Not with your mistakes. We all make mistakes. But with your conscious choices to hurt someone who truly loved you." 2 weeks after the disaster, Social pressure forced Dr. Sergio to retire earlier than planned. 40 years of exemplary medicine, thousands of lives saved, a reputation built surgery by surgery, all tainted by association with the case that had shocked the country. Meanwhile, Luke, the real father of the baby growing in her womb, simply vanished from the face of the earth. Within days, he had sold all his assets, transferred his bank accounts, and disappeared. He moved to another country, blocked Madison on all social media and communication platforms, erasing any digital trace of his previous existence. When she, desperate, tried to contact him through mutual friends, she received a response that chilled her to the bone. Through Patricia, a former college classmate, Luke sent a cold and definitive message. "Tell Madison I don't want any involvement with this situation. The baby isn't my problem. She can figure out how to raise the child herself. I've started over in another country and don't plan to return to the United States anytime soon. Don't try to contact me again." The coldness of his words hit her like a punch to the stomach. The man for whom she had risked and lost everything now treated her like a disposable problem. The person with whom she had planned a future, with whom she had dreamed of sharing parenthood, simply abandoned her at the most difficult moment of her life. 2 weeks after the catastrophe at the church, when Madison thought she had already hit rock bottom, one final surprise arrived, like a final earthquake. The mailman rang the doorbell of her mother's apartment with a registered letter that would definitively change the course of her story. Inside the elegant envelope was a check for $500,000, an amount that made her eyes widen, and a handwritten letter in Ryan's firm, elegant handwriting. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the high-quality paper, and each word seemed to be branded with hot iron into her soul. "Madison, this amount is enough for you to restart your life away from San Francisco and raise your child with dignity. It's more than you deserve, considering what you did, but less than I would have given wholeheartedly if you had chosen honesty from the beginning. There's only one condition, and it's non-negotiable. You must leave San Francisco permanently and never attempt any kind of contact with me, Sophie, or anyone in our social circle again. Not directly, not indirectly, not through third parties, not by chance at public events. Accept this money as a final act of mercy from someone who, against all logic, still holds in memory the woman I thought you were, the woman I loved before discovering who you really were beneath the mask. Consider yourself lucky, Madison. Many people who try to deceive me don't receive a single penny. You're getting a chance to start over that many would dream of having. Ryan Almeida. So there are no misunderstandings. The criminal case remains active, and my lawyers will proceed with all charges regardless of your decision about this money. But if you leave the city quietly and never appear in our lives again, I might consider asking the judge for reduced penalties. The choice is yours."
Madison stared at the check for long minutes that felt like hours. $500,000, a fortune that could guarantee a comfortable life anywhere in the country. But at the same time, it was a golden prison, golden shackles that would forever bind her to the role of the defeated in the story she herself had written. It meant accepting total defeat and publicly admitting that Ryan Almeida had won without leaving room for any kind of future reversal or redemption.
It was signing her own sentence of perpetual exile from the city she had always called home. Tears streamed down her face as she weighed her options. Staying meant facing prison, complete bankruptcy, constant public hatred, and raising a child amid chaos and poverty. Leaving meant accepting that she had lost the most important game of her life and would never have a second chance to rewrite her story. Madison had lost absolutely everything. Life in San Francisco, the career she had built with so much effort, her family's respect, her friends' trust, the love of the man who truly cared about her, and most painful of all, her own dignity. Everything seemed to have dissolved like a house of cards hit by a hurricane. But there was no real alternative. With a child on the way, and no financial resources, no job, and no prospects, she needed to accept Ryan's offer. It was her only chance to give the baby a minimally dignified life. A week later, on a cold Monday morning, Madison Rodriguez left San Francisco behind. She packed her few remaining possessions into 2 large suitcases and headed toward the countryside of Oregon, to a small town called Bend, where no one knew who she was or what she had done. The place was small, quiet, surrounded by mountains and rivers with fewer than 15,000 inhabitants. Simple houses, simple people, a life completely different from the metropolis she had left behind. With the money Ryan had provided, she bought a modest house on the outskirts of town. 3 bedrooms, small yard, curious but respectful neighbors, and invested the rest in a small decoration shop downtown. The shop was humble, modest, but genuinely hers. Mila's Decor, the name she chose to try to leave the past behind. She sold handcrafted items, plants, paintings by local artists, rustic furniture, nothing grandiose but honest and transparent, qualities she had neglected in her previous life. The months passed slowly. Her belly grew, and with it, the inevitable reality approached. 6 months later, on a sunny September morning, Madison gave birth to a healthy, beautiful boy who was the spitting image of his father, Luke. The baby had his eyes piercing green eyes, and the crooked smile characteristic of the man who had fled to another country without taking responsibility. Every smile from the child, every unconscious gesture, every facial expression was a silent and constant reminder of the lies that had brought her there, and the inevitable and painful consequences of her choices. But it was also an inexhaustible source of pure love and a chance for redemption that she didn't know if she deserved. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, in San Francisco, Ryan and Sophie celebrated their wedding in an intimate and discreet ceremony at the same church where everything had begun and ended months before. Only close family and true friends were present. There was no ostentation, no showing off, just true love being celebrated in the purest way possible. The ceremony was the exact opposite of what had been planned with Madison. Simple, genuine, focused on the real commitment between 2 people who knew each other deeply and consciously, chose to build a life together based on honesty and mutual respect. In business, the company prospered extraordinarily. Sophie brought freshness, creativity, and strategic vision that perfectly complemented Ryan's experience. Together they implemented innovations that revolutionized the market, expanded into new segments, and won clients they never imagined possible to reach. Ryan discovered that working with someone he completely trusted was infinitely more rewarding and productive than having a partner like Luke, who always had hidden agendas and conflicting interests. The company, which was already successful, reached completely new levels of prosperity and market recognition. 2 years after the wedding, Ryan and Sophie had their first child, a baby that he knew, without a shadow of doubt, was biologically his, emotionally his, and spiritually his. The child was born from true love, planned and desired by both parents since conception. Madison, on the other hand, raised her child alone in the countryside, working hard in the small decoration shop. She woke up before sunrise to organize products, served customers with a smile that wasn't always genuine, closed the shop when it got dark, and went home where she tried to be the best possible mother to a child who would forever be a reminder of her mistakes. In the silent nights of the countryside, when her son slept and the town seemed to stop completely, she tried to teach the child the values she herself had neglected and lost along the way: honesty, loyalty, integrity. and the moral weight of never deceiving or manipulating someone you truly love. You're going to be a man of your word, she whispered to the sleeping baby. You'll be honest, loyal, you'll value those who love you. You won't repeat your mother's mistakes. At night, before sleeping, Madison invariably reflected on how absolutely everything could have been different if she had made different choices at crucial moments in her life. If she had been honest with Ryan from the beginning, even if it meant facing difficult consequences. If she had had the courage to end her relationship before getting emotionally and physically involved with Luke. If she had properly valued true and sincere love, instead of prioritizing only financial security and social status. But now it was too late for regrets or attempts to rewrite history. The past was carved in stone, and she would have to carry the consequences for the rest of her life. Ryan had given her the harshest and most definitive lesson of her existence. Consciously playing with someone's deep feelings and using love as a cruel instrument of manipulation inevitably leads to devastating consequences that go far beyond what anyone can imagine or predict. The revenge he had orchestrated wasn't just public or humiliating. It was systematic, meticulous, scientifically planned to destroy not only the life she had built on a foundation of lies, but also to ensure she would never again have the opportunity to repeat the same destructive mistakes with anyone else. And perhaps the most impressive and painful of all, Ryan truly moved on with his life. He didn't become bitter, didn't become cynical about love, didn't develop traumas that prevented him from trusting again. He simply applied the same strategic intelligence and calculated coldness he had always used in business to definitively get rid of a toxic person and build genuine and lasting happiness. Madison had made a fatal calculation error. She had completely underestimated Ryan Almeida. She thought he would be too weak and naive to discover the truth behind her elaborate lies, and at the same time too strong and passionate to hurt her if he discovered the betrayal. She was tragically wrong on both counts. Ryan proved that a truly passionate man can become the most dangerous and relentless person in the world when he is consciously betrayed and manipulated by someone who should love him above all else, and that sometimes the sweetest and most effective revenge isn't violence or aggression, but simply completely removing someone toxic from your life and genuinely embracing someone who truly deserves and values your love. The last time Madison heard about Ryan was 3 years after her departure from San Francisco, through a business magazine that happened to arrive at the small bookstore in town where she sometimes bought children's books for her son. He was on the cover as Businessman of the Year, alongside Sophie, who was described as the partner and wife who revolutionized the market. In the photo they appeared with 2 small children, a girl in Sophie's arms and a slightly older boy playing at his father's feet. Behind them, the headquarters of a company that had become worth billions, with branches in 4 countries. But what caught Madison's attention most were the genuine and radiant smiles on both their faces. These were smiles of people who had found and built true happiness, based on real love and mutual trust. Madison closed the magazine with trembling hands and looked out the window of her small, simple house in the countryside. Her son, now 3 years old, ran freely through the yard, laughing loudly and chasing colorful butterflies that danced among the flowers she had planted. At least one genuinely good thing had emerged from all that devastating chaos she had created. In that moment of deep reflection, she finally understood and accepted a fundamental truth that had come too late. There is no true love without absolute honesty. There is no real happiness built on foundations of elaborate lies. And those who choose to consciously manipulate others will inevitably end up being manipulated by life itself in ways they could never predict or control. The most powerful revenge of all, she realized with a mixture of admiration and sadness, isn't the destruction of an enemy, but simply living well, with integrity, surrounded by people who truly deserve and return the love offered. And you who are listening to this story, what do you think about all this? Did you think Ryan's elaborate revenge was fair and deserved, or excessive and too cruel? Have you personally experienced or know someone close who went through a similar situation of betrayal discovered at the most inopportune moment? Comment below with your honest opinion about this story that moved millions of people across the entire United States. If you enjoyed this shocking and emotional account, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any exclusive content, and turn on notifications, because every week there's a new surprising dramatic story full of plot twists waiting for you here on the channel.